live.
Hello and welcome back to another, we should kill another podcaster just for the hell of it, episode of the First Time Watchers podcast.
Because we like to watch.
My name is Tim Costa.
I'm Hermano de Silva.
And those crickets you hear is the sound of Walter Vinci going runny runny and stabby stabby. But if you'd like to send feedback, you can always email us at firsttimewatchers@gmail.com. Speaking of feedback, I just want to thank JD Duran of the In Session Film Podcast for having me on this past weekend to discuss, get this, Hermano, Gerard Butler's plane. Get it? Plane, vehicle.
Oh, I got it. It's a dad joke. You're a dad.
Indeed. Guess how long just the two of us went on to discuss the movie Plane and Gerard Butler?
I know In Session is notorious for their run times, but I'm guessing because you give them so much shit, you tried to keep it shorter. I'm gonna say an hour and 45 minutes.
Well, close. It was just about 45 minutes or so, but and it was just the two. It was just the two of us, and we were just talking about the movie and a little bit about Gerard Butler. It wasn't anything else, so it was a nice short review episode. And you know, he let me wax poetic a little bit on my love for Gerard Butler. So if
he only needed 45 minutes. How much love could there be?
How much love could there be? Indeed. If anybody has seen the movie Plane or has not seen the movie Plane and still wants to learn about the movie Plane and about my love for Gerard Butler, you can go listen to me discuss it on the In Session Film Podcast. Special review episode of that. It was fun. Anyways, in this episode of the First Time Watchers Podcast, we'll be discussing the 2010 Korean film, The Yellow Sea. But before we get into that, it is time for Yay or Nay. This is the part of the show where we discuss what we have seen recently on our own. I will go first. Hermano, you're a big fan of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, are you not?
Yeah, I might be bringing one up later.
Oh, interesting. Well, I'm. I say that facetiously, knowing your past comments on Marvel movies, because I went out and watched Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania because it is the latest one in theaters. And who would I be if I didn't go see the latest MCU movie? One of the sheep.
I've heard not good things.
I can see why people would be turned off by such a movie. But, you know, look, if you haven't bought into the ridiculousness of the Ant-Man series by now, this movie will not change your mind. They really lean into the silliness of the premise and I think double down on the idea of the multiverse that they've introduced in more recent entries. And they even introduced an entirely new idea to those who haven't watched any of the Marvel TV shows, because those are all connected, of course. The introduction of Kang is interesting, even though I don't think we're really aware of why or how he got his powers, which is kind of a shame. But the inclusion of MODOK is very well handled, and as well handled as you could for such a ridiculous creature. Honestly, whenever he was on screen, I was giggling the whole time. Overall, it's goofy, it's weird, kind of a fun time, not too dissimilar to the other Ant-Man films. So everyone's mileage may vary. I've heard a lot of people's varied opinions. Look, if you're either going to buy into it or not, and that's fine. Mild yay for me, I guess. Mild yay. And then a few weeks ago, I was able to go see the new M. Night Shyamalan movie because we all know that M. Night is back. He's been back for a little while now. And nobody is happier than me to see that. And I went to go see Knock at the Cabin. Hermano, I'm not sure how familiar you are with this movie, but it is based off of a novel. And,
yep, I knew that much.
This is somewhat new territory for someone like Shyamalan, who, while he has adapted material before, you know, one thing that really I think skewed the discourse of this movie and maybe even interpretations of it or analysis of it was people comparing it to the novel, especially bringing up the ending and stuff like that, which is a shame because I think a movie should be able to stand on its own, and you should not critique a movie based on its faithfulness or lack thereof to the source material. I say that with any kind of movie, whether it be a comic book movie, you know, another fantasy movie, or something like this. And it's a shame because you know, like I said, the discourse is really interesting reading up on it. But honestly, this is a movie I wanted to like more because it does share a similar DNA to one of his previous movies in Signs. But there was something just missing, and I really couldn't quite put my finger on it. And it might be due to the lack of ambiguity involving the scenario, this couple and child they find themselves in. There's like a clear amount of evidence that we're presented with that feels somewhat one-sided and never really offers a sense of doubt, considering what the movie's about and what the characters go through. And I think that lack of ambiguity, where it's so definitive, especially by the end of this movie, as to what unfolded and what was experienced. I was like, I don't know. I think it could have been left a little bit more open ended to allow more interpretation from the viewer. And also, the premise and the politics is rather alarming and not something I would expect from someone like M. Night Shyamalan. I would understand if a filmmaker like, say, Mel Gibson made this, especially how it ends. And I'm not sure what I'm supposed to take away from it. However, on a technical level, this movie is really great to look at because Shyamalan remains an expert with the camera and its use of movement. He is a technical master and better than most filmmakers today. And there were a number of times where I was reminded of Alfred Hitchcock and the way it was shot, the way it's filmed. The actors and performances are fine. I just wish I wasn't left at arm's distance regarding each of the characters' plights or self-righteousness. So, if you ever have a chance to see this, Hermano, I'd be really interested how you take it.
I mean, you're saying he's back, but he's not back for me because I didn't like Glass. I didn't like The Visit. I didn't even bother with Old, and I have zero interest in watching this.
Interesting.
I just feel like, I don't know, he's kind of on the outs with me right now. I don't know what it's going to take to bring me back, to be honest. Like, I tried with Glass because I did like Unbreakable and Split so much. But Glass was just an absolute trilogy nightmare. So
that's a shame.
Yeah, I don't know. He's just in director's jail for me right now.
Well, honestly, I think Old is a lot of fun, really well done, and very pulpy. I don't think he takes it seriously, and I think it's self-evident too. Which is for a filmmaker who has a bit of self-seriousness in him in his movies, especially his earlier movies. I think Old is him having fun, pulpy fun. Knock at the Cabin brings back that seriousness. I would say it's a meh. And then you remember last year the new Sight and Sound list came out.
Yes.
And there was the new #1 movie, a movie that you had never heard of, called the Jeanne Deilman.
Is it the one where it's just a woman doing random things like household chores?
Yeah, pretty much. And it's from 1975, directed by Chantal Ackerman. And I'll read the plot synopsis from IMDb. It's a lonely widowed housewife does her daily chores, takes care of her apartment where she lives with her teenage son, and turns the occasional trick to make ends meet. However, something happens that changes her safe routine. And this movie is 3 hours and 22 minutes long. While I was watching this movie, I of course I have this in my head, and I have also I read up on it a little bit going into this movie as to kind of what to expect. And yes, this movie is extremely deliberate and features zero camera movements at all. The camera is always stationary, and there's long moments of just fixating on a room with this woman in it, whether it's the kitchen, whether it's the living room or the bedroom, or a hallways, and just let's say it's in the kitchen. It's just fixated, stationary, watching her do some sort of work, whether it's cleaning, cooking, or whatever. And there's 3 distinct acts because it takes place over 3 days, and you get to understand her routine, her meticulousness nature, and how as the movie goes on, you see how something disrupts her routine and makes things. It makes her act in just slightly off ways, just slightly different than what she had been doing previously. So while you're watching this, you notice those slight differences, and then you're wondering, well, what caused this, or what is this? So, I don't know. What you take away from this movie is completely dependent on what you expect or desire from any film experience. This is the definition of slow cinema. And if you're willing to submit to what it is trying to do, you might find it rewarding. But it is very difficult to engage with. And even despite that, I still found it kind of oddly hypnotic. I was able to find this rhythm of Jeanne's daily routine, and when it's upset in that second day, I saw mild interruptions in the housework as well as her demeanor, and the even like the look on her face changes from a simple satisfaction to one of barely perceptible discontent, and it's is this a new state of wariness or is it a change in her mental condition? That might be answered in the final 10 minutes of the film. I talk about the camera's always stationary. It's the placement of it is interesting. It's always at waist level and it never moves, and the only edits are from one location to the other. So it's all very symmetrical, and it probably is to reflect the way she lives her life, neat and orderly. I will admit this is with the new voting body on the Sight and Sound list, they expanded the voting body to a lot more people, a lot more diverse group too, of people of color and gender. A lot more women were added onto this voting body as well, and I can see this is definitely an overcorrection. I think due to the people who are voting, absolutely an overcorrection. This movie made, the list, the last two voting rounds, the previous 20 years. It originally appeared in like the 70s, and then like in 2012, it was in the 30s somewhere, and it jumped up to number one. And I would never. This would never even come close to my personal top 100 movies, and I have zero idea even how to rate it. But I was still. I'm very fascinated by others' reasonings as to why they think this is worthy of making such a list. So, I'm not sure I would ever recommend you watch this, Hermano. Not just based on the runtime, but also based on, the slow cinema aspect of it. It's, but like I said, I found it interesting. So
yeah, more of a curiosity.
Yeah. And something like this is going to pop up on such a well-regarded list. It's not like I'm ever going to disregard this movie and ignore it. Like I said, everybody has a different desire of what they expect from movies, right?
Right.
And if this is it, then it'll be for you. But if not, yeah, stay away. So, what have you seen recently?
Okay, we're gonna go from the number one on the Sight and Sound to a movie you probably don't even know exists.
Oh boy,
came out 3 years ago. Disney film called The One and Only Ivan.
Oh.
A gorilla named Ivan tries to piece together his past with the help of an elephant named Ruby as they hatch a plan to escape from captivity. Family movie night. Yeah, this was on streaming on Disney. My kids were reading the book. It's actually based on a real story, true story, of a silverback gorilla that was kept in captivity inside a mall circus act for 27 years.
Wow.
Never saw the outside. And when people got wind of it, they protested and demanded its release. Now that's the real story. The movie is a little bit more, they got to fill in a lot to make a movie. So the movie is a little bit, it's talking gorillas, talking animals. The gorilla Ivan is voiced by Sam Rockwell. Bryan Cranston plays the circus trainer.
Yeah, what a cast! What a voice cast too.
Yeah, Danny DeVito is the voice of a dog that hangs around with Ivan in his cage.
When was the last time we heard from Chaka Khan?
Who was Chaka Khan? Was she the poodle?
Henrietta?
Yeah, I think that's the poodle. I had no idea that was Chaka Khan. But Angelina Jolie is in there as well as an elephant. And it's a perfect family night movie. Talking animals. It's got a lot of heart to it. Got some sad moments. Disney loves those sad moments. Trying to age those kids up real quick. But the real story was pretty heartbreaking. But it's a good conclusion. Like the best case scenario for this gorilla. And I mean, I'll spoil it. It's not a big deal. But like in real life, he got to go to a. It's not like they brought him back to Africa or anything, but they put him outside in a gigantic 100-acre nature preserve in Atlanta.
Oh, okay.
And he got to live out the rest of his life there, just like he would be if he was, out in nature or whatever. So it's a heartwarming story, perfect for family night. I would certainly tell you to bring this up and see if your daughter was interested. So
yeah.
Yay for the kids and the one and only Ivan.
Cool.
Then I watched another Disney thing from the Marvel Cinematic Universe, Tim.
Oh boy, is this your choice or no?
This was my choice.
Oh.
My kids did not want to see it.
Huh.
But I saw that it popped on Disney. I did like the first one. I wouldn't say I loved it. It was probably maybe the last Marvel film I saw. Actually, no, never mind. This came out pre Endgame, right?
Right.
Black Panther came out before all that shit, right?
Absolutely.
Okay, I can't remember, man. Anyway, I saw Black Panther: Wakanda Forever.
Okay.
And how was this received, Tim? Did people like it?
I think kind of. It definitely less so than the first movie. It was gonna take a lot to reach the heights and popularity of that first film.
Yeah, and obviously, loss of Chadwick Boseman is a massive loss, a real, mountain of a tragedy they had to overcome and make this film. So I won't give them too much crap, but I really thought the loss of Chadwick Boseman is massive.
Oh, a huge void
for this franchise.
Huge void, absolutely.
Oh my God, I mean, honestly, the best thing about it is the little thing they do for him in the beginning, the moment of silence.
Sure.
With the Marvel pre-credits thing.
Yep.
That was great.
Can I tell you? I think
yes.
You know what? As a movie, I kind of like this more than the first Black Panther.
Okay, I 1000% disagree.
I get it.
I think Shuri carrying this forward, if that's their plan, is not a good plan.
I'm not so sure that she's going to be the one to carry it forward.
I mean, they do something at the end that leads me to believe maybe there'll be some sort of a time jump. But yeah, I don't know. I couldn't get behind her as the lead. I don't think she's as interesting or as captivating as someone like Chadwick Boseman. The bad guy or the antagonist, whatever you want to call him.
Mm-hmm.
I'm already forgetting so much about this film. I am a little bit far removed from it, so it could be that, but I also don't think it's a very memorable film.
Interesting. Okay.
It's really long, and I could barely tell you what happens in it. I know that there's a couple things where it felt like one actor just really wanted out. I'm guessing because I don't know why they make that choice. Otherwise, for that character, sure, you're talking about. So there's a major death.
Yeah.
Of,
okay.
Character.
Okay. Really? You think that person wanted out? Who probably gives the best performance in the film?
I mean, yeah. She's like, all right, I'm gonna give my best performance, and then I'm out because I don't want to go forward with this anymore. I mean, I don't know. I'm total conjecture. I don't know. But I just don't think that for as a story point or a plot point makes a lot of sense. For her character.
Okay.
I don't know. I don't want to give too much away, but I don't know. Just as a movie, I definitely did not think it was as good as the first one. I think the characters of Chadwick Boseman and Michael B. Jordan really made the first film. Where in this one, I just didn't think the characters really got up to those heights of those other two.
It would have been, like I said, it would have been very hard to do so.
No, I know, I get it. So like that's why I'm not giving him too much crap. But I just don't. I definitely thought this was a swing and a miss. Like I don't know. Again, I don't know what it's at a 6.8 on IMDb. I gave it a 6. I don't think it's terrible. It's definitely not the reason I went into. Like the reason I went into it is because I thought the first one was pretty decent as a Marvel film, and this one I thought was definitely on the downswing. So it's kind of a meh for Black Panther: Wakanda Forever.
It's interesting how they introduce this young girl that they recruit from college or whatever, and how that is the most shoehorned aspect of it, because she is going to be having her own series at some point in the future.
It felt very tacked on. I'm like, who is this character? I know nothing about her.
Right.
It's like they basically introduce her as like, oh, you get everything. Basically, they're trying to make a female Tony Stark.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. Like, I don't know. It felt unnecessary, and it's like she disappears. I don't even remember her towards the end of the film.
Absolutely. Yeah. She does kind of disappear until she has to reappear at the end.
I know she has something to do with one of the last action set pieces, but I think she's just flying around and doing stuff. Like I don't know.
Yeah.
It didn't seem like she was integral to anything really.
Well, kind of. Yeah, exactly. And then, Angela Bassett is the first actor to be nominated for an acting award, Oscar, in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Which is very interesting to me, although very well deserved, I think.
There's a specific moment in it that I think she definitely earns it. Like it's a great performance. Yep. I definitely don't take away anything from her. She's honestly one of the standouts of the film. Something I'll remember, but everything else is so forgettable. So, yeah.
Lift me up, hold me down, keep me close, safe and sound. Burning in a hopeless dream. Hold me when you go to sleep. Keep me in the warmth of your love when you depart. Keep me safe, safe and sound.
So has the mail come in yet?
Actually, yes, and these are for you.
What is all that?
Ad briefs. Don't you remember the last promo?
Wait, you were serious about that?
But you know what show you should seriously check out?
The In Session Film Podcast.
That's right, Tim. The In Session Film Podcast is JD and Brendan.
I've got a special delivery for Brendan, if you know what I mean.
Okay, then. Anyways, each week the In Session Film Podcast chooses a movie to review.
Then creates a discussion topic based on what they just saw.
And this week, the In Session Film Podcast is reviewing Ant-Man and the Wasp, Quantumania.
Then discuss my favorite topic, the state of the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
You can find their show on Apple Podcasts by searching for, you guessed it, the In Session Film Podcast.
Or on the web at insessionfilm.com.
So if you're looking for more great movie reviews and discussion,
then check out the In Session Film Podcast on Apple Podcasts.
Or on the web at insessionfilm.com.
So, Wally, when do these new promos start?
Soon-ish?
Looks like you have some work ahead of you.
Keep me close, safe and sound. Drowning in an endless sea. Take some time and stay with me. Keep me in the strength of your arms. Keep me safe, safe and sound. Lift me up, hold me down.
Do you like movie podcasts hosted by inebriated people? That's Kai with the cracking voice and Heather's touched by evil. One thinks he's Spider-Man, the other is the ninja. It's the Man I Love Film Podcast, it's the Milkcast.
Hey everybody, everybody. I'm Kai.
And I'm Heather.
And we are the hosts of MILFcast, the Men I Love Films podcast, the unofficial official podcast of menIlovefilms.com. This is the podcast where we like to talk about what we've been watching, talk about movies, but mainly we just like to drink, be silly, and play a whole bunch of games. So we think every other week you should grab a drink, snuggle up, and let us make sweet love to your ears.
Otherwise, we'll make sweet love to your couch.
So come and find us on iTunes. Just search for MILFcast.
I need love. Keep on me close. Say, on me.
This podcast is a proud member of the Lamb Podcasting Network. Find the network at largeassmovieblogs.com.
On me, on me, on me, on me.
Okay, let's talk about the Yellow Sea.
서울시 강남구 논현동 99의 1 김승현.
잊어버리지 말라. 네 이거 잊어버리면 너네 식구들 다 죽는다.
내 명가다. 반갑다.
우남아, 네 한국과 사람 하나 죽이고 그래. 네 농담인 줄 아니? 네 이기서 그 돈 다 못 문다.
네 양까지 바람났다니까. 바람나니까 니한테 돈 부숴줄 일이 있네.
다시 시작해라. 참. 그 사람 손가락 가져와야 된다. 손가락. MG.
The plot. When the attempt to kill a professor goes wrong, a series of violent events are triggered which force a taxi driver to run for his life. The director, Na Hong-jin. The actors, Lee Yu-mi, Ha Jong-woo, Kim Yoon-seok, and others. Hermano, you've been a fan of Korean films in the past, and I'm sure other Korean crime thrillers. How does this one stack up to you?
Okay, first I'll say that this was recommended to us.
Yes, it was.
To all of us this time. I know I don't had Mike ever recommended this to you or Wally? To your recollection?
No, a listener, Mike Close, sent an email to us recommending this film specifically for the podcast.
Okay. Well, even before that, Mike had recommended this to me for years. I want to say he's gonna have to correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like he's told me about this film a while ago. I had it on my watch list for the longest time, kept looking to see if it was streaming anywhere, and it just was never streaming, ever. So I always put it off because I'm like, it's gonna eventually stream somewhere, right? But apparently not. And it had a good rating. I totally, didn't want to just put off his recommendation. I trust his opinion. So I'm glad we finally got to see it. We had the excuse of doing a full review, rented it, and I liked it quite a bit. I was a little worried in the beginning because it does get off to a little bit of a slow start. There's a little bit of build up there to the characters and the people that are going to be involved in the plot. But I would say once a murder happens, I think from that point on, I think the movie's great. Like, there's a lot of kind of like head scratching. There's like twists, there's turns. I'm trying to figure out. I honestly got lost, and Mia, after the movie was done, I was still a little confused about one particular thing.
Yeah.
And I hate doing this because I just like to go into the review completely unencumbered and not having all this other knowledge from like Wikipedia or IMDb or, I just like to, just have my, my own thoughts to bring to the podcast and talk about.
Mm-hmm.
But I had to look this up because I didn't want to come in with the wrong idea. And I'm glad I did because it kind of made more sense. And I think it was overall a better conclusion because I had a completely different idea. Which are we doing spoilers? Do you want to do spoilers?
Yeah,
please?
we're gonna have to get into spoilers because I didn't look into this because the resolution was murky to me.
Okay, it's gonna make more sense because it was a little murky to me because I had confused two different characters.
Okay.
And I was maybe slightly unintentionally racist.
Oh, jeez.
Because apparently I couldn't tell two characters apart because I thought they looked similar because they had similar hairstyles.
Okay.
So, not racist at all, Tim. All right, stop accusing me.
Hey, wait a minute.
But yeah, I liked it. Like, it definitely from the the crime aspect, the action, the chase scenes in this,
Yeah.
I thought they were pretty freaking intense. Like,
okay.
it was like,
we're
I
gonna
hate
have
to use the word. Go ahead.
we're gonna have to get into that a little bit down the road because I have comments.
Okay, I'm sure you do. I can see probably where you're going to come at, but I hate to use the word edge of your seat, but I definitely felt like close to that because I felt like just the way they're staged and the sheer number of people chasing him,
Yeah.
it made me feel almost like this is impossible.
Right.
And it felt intense, so it worked for me.
Okay.
So, and then, you know, there are elements of the movie where I think there's a particular homage to Old Boy.
Oh yeah,
at one
sure.
point.
Absolutely.
And yeah, I just really dug like the way it's put together, like the construction of the film itself. Like, it definitely helped that I went onto Wikipedia and it cleared up one thing for me. But for the most part, I was like 98% there,
Mm-hmm.
and I got most of it. I just needed to know the relationship between two characters that I wasn't 100% sure of. And once that was cleared up for me, it made a lot more sense. And instantly I you know, really liked the movie that much more after that. So yeah, overall, I dug it a lot.
So we've seen our fair share, I think, of French action thrillers, maybe on our own or for the podcast.
Yeah.
And this movie actually reminded me of some of those French films, maybe in style and tone, where it uses a similar story of a person caught up in situations that get them in over their head, especially during a car chase scene. Just the way it was shot, it gave me the same feeling of one of those French films. But this is very much a Korean film, considering how like the police are portrayed. It's so interesting. I think we've commented, both you and I have commented on these Korean films where it's so interesting to see the police fumble with their weapons and simply be unable to capture anybody they pursue.
Yeah, but it's not all the police, right? It's
No.
like the patrol police.
Yeah. Anyone who is not a detective is shown as a bumbling fool.
Basically.
Yeah, and it's
that's a thing. That must be like a big source of comedy for Korea.
Is it, or is
They
it
do it a lot.
is it just a cultural aspect of a viewpoint, if you will?
Maybe we'd have to look into it.
Right. I am so interested in seeing so many of these Korean films and how the patrolmen are portrayed. It's just so strange, you know. And yeah, I get it that there are strict gun control laws in Korea. Hence the reason all the non-police officers use knives or other blunt objects, and because, you know, the people who fire the guns are the patrolmen, and they just like have no idea how to handle their weapon. It's such an interesting dichotomy when you compare it to American films, who it's just such a gun culture driven society over here. And you know, it's so interesting too, you know, as time has gone on and I've become more aware of other cultures outside of the US and how guns are viewed, how much I took it for granted the ubiquitousness of guns in American films. You know what I mean?
Isn't that interesting though, that it opens this film up to like a different set of circumstances where there were actual foot chases and you know, car chases and stuff like that. If that's America, that dude's dead. Like,
oh, sure.
The movie's like 20 minutes long.
Yeah.
You know, if this movie's taking place in America, I mean, I don't know. There are definitely movies that, you know, the cops aren't just gun crazy or whatever, or depicted that way. But it is interesting, you know, because of, like you said, like the gun culture in Korea and like how it's basically non-existent and police are pretty much the only ones allowed to carry guns. I mean, even the criminals in this, it's like they don't even have like illegal guns. It's like they just have knives and axes and shit.
Yeah.
And it's like it's it's opens it up to like different set of circumstances and the way you have to shoot action scenes, and I dug that.
Yeah, no, I get it. Yes,
It's not just all shootouts. You know,
you're right. It is an interesting way to set up action scenes, and they are different. Absolutely. I mean, you even see that with like the raid movies. It's the police that enter and have guns, and I think most of the people in the apartment complex have other types of weapons for the most part, and they yeah. So it's just so interesting. Another thing that is interesting is the premise. It is twisty. It did always keep me guessing, even though the story does feel familiar. You know, you have these warring gangsters who use people with no regard to their well-being, and those caught in the crossfire have no solution other than to fight or feel the wrath of their bosses. So there is, you know, a level of familiarity with the direction the movie goes in, but it's still twisty enough to keep me guessing and on board with what's going on. So, but you know, I don't have enough familiarity with the political or cultural impact of the people depicted here because, you know, it's a very specific. The movie opens up with a title card that tells you about this group of people that are in a specific area of the world, you know, kind of caught in between these three countries, and how they're essentially refugees with no home. And you know, so I don't have enough familiarity with this political or cultural impact of these people that are depicted here. So it was a little bit difficult for me to connect to with some of the characters. I'm not sure they do a good enough job of making me understand why the migrants are found in that situation, and how some of what is shown could happen. How did you feel about that situation?
Oh, I mean, I couldn't 100% relate to it, but the main character and how, you know, his whole thing is that he sent his wife,
you
know, to Korea to, you know, hopefully find like a good job or, you know, able to send money back so that he would eventually be able to join her in Korea and maybe start their lives there. That's just a classic immigrant story. Like my family went through something like that where like my grandparents came to America first, and then once they made some money, they would send it back, and then like, you know, my mom or dad were able to move to America as well in the 70s. So like I could relate to like that whole, you know, setup. Now the whole getting in debt thing and being indebted,
right?
A lot, you know, there's a lot of things going on in this film where, you know, the guy is a little bit worried that, you know, he hasn't heard from his wife in a while. He starts having these thoughts that she may have run off on him because she hasn't been sending money back, and it's kind of driving him to down this path that's, you know, a dark path. And he, you know, takes on this job to actually just get there, and not only, you know, gets a job to assassinate a guy to wipe out his debt, but while he's there, he's also trying to figure out like what happened to his wife and why hasn't she been in contact with him. So it's there's a lot of layers to the film, which I think they handled all pretty well.
Yeah, I mean, I like the calendar that he has and the time frame that, you know, there's always reminding us of that he has to get this done by. I like that aspect, but I'm not sure it's ever really followed through enough. Especially, you know, granted there is enough of a chance considering the shit that he goes through and is caught up in towards the last half of this movie for him to go back to that calendar or anything like that.
Yeah,
I understand, but I don't know. There was something about the time frame of this movie in the second half that it kind of lost me a little bit.
Yeah, even though I said it got off to a little bit of a slow start, I did appreciate that they didn't rush the whole murder aspect of it, like the job he was supposed to do. Like he did have a week to pull it off before he was supposed to go back on a boat.
Right.
And you see him just kind of scouting it out, kind of getting used to the guy's routine who he's supposed to knock off. And, you know, just in between that at night going and trying to figure out and investigate like what happened to his wife. And the back and forth of that, like I found that interesting before the action really kicks off. But I think there's like I know we use this word around, we throw this word around a lot, but there is like instantly there's like a Hitchcockian element that really interested me a lot, because I'm like, wait, what the heck is happening here? Like he in the main character also, you're in his shoes because you're like, he doesn't even know what the hell is happening. And from that point on, I'm like, all right, it's more than just an action film now. There's this sort of mystery that's around, and you don't know what's happening and why these other guys are there.
Right.
And I think like that's what I'm saying. Like they handled all of that pretty well, except for one thing, like I keep mentioning that I wasn't 100% sure about.
Yeah.
And I thought it was a little bit confusing because we'll talk about this in spoilers, but there's another thing that I want to mention that I don't know if you stuck around for.
Okay. Yeah, it's there are a number of elements that are inserted here that kind of keep twisting the screws and twisting the plot a little bit, which I'm wondering if it was even necessary to have these kind of threads going all the way through to the end of the movie, essentially, because they have it's interesting how he's constantly up to date on the news reports. There's always like a TV that he's around, and he's able to keep up with what's happening, what the latest reports are, the police discoveries and all that kind of stuff. And there's let's just say a body that is found that they aren't able to identify, but they kind of have an idea of who it might be, but the way he reacts to it doesn't really seem. He's like kind of nonplussed, He's like doesn't really react to it the way I think the audience is reacting to it. Like, hey, wait a minute, is this or isn't this? And then it's just. And is that ever really resolved by the end? Once again, you might be able to clue me in a little bit. It's something I missed because, like I said, I could have missed a key discovery or plot point. But
I mean, I think initially when he sees that initial report, I don't think he puts two and two together.
Yeah.
I mean, the audience is maybe putting it together and he is kind of like, it doesn't even enter his mind that even could be a possibility.
Right.
Like he just doesn't even, that's not even his mindset. He still thinks he's gonna, locate this person. So.
You mentioned the chase scenes, the action scenes. The sheer amount of people that he is able to literally get out of their grasp is, I mean, come on.
Look, I was able to buy it. I mean, the cop one was the one that I had the hardest time with, because they literally have guns on him. And
at the bus stop where they stop the bus?
Yes. Yeah, that one. I was like, okay, like it's harrowing, it's thrilling, it's all the things it should be, but believability, that's the one I think stretched it the most.
Yeah, and it's not just the fact that he gets away because the one cop doesn't know how to shoot his gun and then accidentally shoots his partner in the back. There's a follow through on that. Where the crime scene is there, and the way he is reacting to having shot his friend, I'm like, what is this? What movie is this?
Yeah, that's the part I'm talking about. Is like once that happens, it's like everyone else just stops. Like all the other cops that are around just stop to tend to that guy, and he's able to just run through the woods.
Yeah,
there's one guy chasing him, but like everyone else is like, dude, you all have guns.
But even when the detectives show up later and they're investigating and they notice the gangsters down the street just looking on the scene, they even make a point of showing the guy who fired the gun just sitting there in disbelief, and then his further reaction. I'm once again like, I don't understand what's happening, and once it just might be a cultural thing. I don't get it.
It has to be, because the detectives are always shown as like the coolest like mofos alive.
Absolutely.
And the patrol guys that are dressed in like typical police uniforms are just absolutely incompetent and bumbling and used for comedic effect almost.
Yeah.
So it's just got to be a thing. Like, I mean, we've seen it too many times now for it to just be a coincidence.
Absolutely.
As far as the chase scenes, the ones involving cars, were you reminded at all of like the Blues Brothers?
A little bit, yes, but also terrible green screen work. Really bad editing at times.
I feel like they used different cameras. Did you notice that the resolution would switch?
It seemed like it, and I think it might have been because of the green screen, the blurring behind the characters.
Yeah, there were times where I felt like all of a sudden it just seemed like they weren't shooting with the same cameras. Like maybe they used some GoPros or some lesser cameras because of like the potential for them to get damaged,
right?
Or something like that. Because I know they're not going to throw like a $25,000 camera on a car and then wreck it. Yeah, I did notice that. But again, like those things are little nitpicks. Like otherwise, I thought the plot was pretty strong, and I thought they handled all the elements and closed it out in a way that was satisfying.
Yeah, fair enough. But I still am kind of boggled at the first time the cops show up in the building after the murder, and just the sheer lunacy of him being followed, him dropping from floor to floor, dropping to areas, and the dozens and dozens of police officers, along with a couple of cars. The cars by themselves are banging into all other aspects of humanity, and just like, what is happening here?
I dug it though, man. As crazy as that was, where he's trying to escape that building and eventually jumps out, like basically towards the cops that are waiting below.
Yeah,
I was like, it was all really thrilling. Like it's basically a foot chase, but I thought it was really well done. Like, I mean, if there was Tom Cruise, like you'd be like just screaming.
Of course
like,
I would.
Yeah, go run, Tom, run.
Of course I would. Or Keanu Reeves in Point Break.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then there's another chase scene towards the end of the movie with the bad guys around the boat area, the docks, and a similar situation where they all have, and I think this is where you come up with the Old Boy reference, where they all have axes and knives, and I was just waiting for the freeze frame and the dashed line go from eye to knee or something like that, you know? But
it was good though. I mean, foot chases can just be boring if it's just a bunch of guys chasing another guy,
right?
But I think they did it well with like him trying to get to that truck and being chased by all these guys with knives and axes swiping at him and stuff, and he's like pretty much knocking them off one at a time, and I just thought like all that, the way it was shot was pretty well done.
Yeah.
And thrilling. Like, I mean, it could have just been a boring chase scene, but they elevated it.
I agree. Okay, let's get into spoilers. Okay, Hermano, I imagine you were, like I was, confused with the people who portrayed his wife and the wife or the woman with the person that was murdered.
Man, there is so much to unpack because there's so much going on with a lot of characters, a lot of connective tissue.
Yeah, because the person who was murdered was some other like a government guy or something like that, who was sleeping with the girlfriend or wife of one of the mobsters.
Yes. So the main guy, like, I guess the clean mobster, as I'll put it, like not the street level mobster.
Right.
He is the one that his wife was slept with by the guy that the main guy in the film is supposed to kill.
Yeah.
What you don't also realize is that his wife also hired someone to kill her own husband.
Okay.
So that's where I got a little bit confused, because I had confused his wife with the wife of the guy that he was searching for.
Right.
Because that lady at the end at the bank is the wife of the guy that's murdered.
Right.
She had put money up, and she's the one that hired him, the main guy, the antagonist, the protagonist in the movie.
She hired him through
the other guy,
the street level gangster.
Mobster.
Holy shit.
Yes, I know. There's a lot going on. It's like soap opera level. Like, you got to connect. You need like Charlie Day in that board with the red yarn.
Yes.
There's a lot to connect. But that's what was confusing me too, because I was like, wait, is that his wife? He's seeing at the end, and she's alive, and she's at the bank, and he's thinking like, like I've done all this stuff, I can't possibly face her.
Right.
But she sees him and she looks shocked.
Yeah.
But I had gotten his wife and the wife of the guy that's murdered confused because I thought they looked similar.
Right.
They had similar hairstyles.
Yeah.
I don't know. I couldn't tell them apart basically.
And
that's
so
hence the unintentionally racist.
So what are we to be led to believe of what happened to the protagonist's wife? That she was killed and was the one that was found in that news report?
No, see, this is where Wikipedia helps a lot.
Wow.
Because did you stay post credits?
I did not.
Okay, you didn't even have to last that long. It's more of like a mid credits.
Well, wait a minute. I remember seeing, because during all the end, he had been stabbed, and then he is hijacks that boat, and then he dies on the boat. And I remember seeing him being dumped into the water.
Okay, there's something after that.
Oh, wow.
There's a few credits. Like if you wait about, I'd say 30 seconds.
Okay.
There's like another scene, and it's just a woman getting off a train.
Oh, yes. Yeah, I did see that.
Oh, you did? Okay. That's the guy's wife, supposedly.
Wow, because she's carrying a bag just like the other girl carried a bag outside of the...
It's so confusing, but Wikipedia says that was an added-on scene where it shows that the protagonist's wife is alive.
What?
And she's getting off a train.
Okay, so this is more heartbreaking than I was led to believe from what I saw, because, or what I interpreted originally, because, it's one thing, one thread that is left loose is the protagonist's daughter is left with his
mom,
and there was always the threat of the street level gangster going to send people to kill if he didn't do the job,
Yeah.
And so that's left, when his body is dumped in the water, you're like, oh yeah, he now he's leaving an orphan,
Yeah.
And he's one of the nameless people being dumped, just like he witnessed earlier, when he was on the migrant ship, of somebody being dumped after they had died on the boat. So, and now you're telling me that his wife is A-okay and coming back home?
I guess. I don't know that scene was necessary. It does add maybe kind of a little bit of a more hopeful ending that the kid will at least have one of her parents,
I guess.
But it does not answer like where has she been?
Right.
What is going on? Like she's been like the woman that you think he's carrying in the bag, the ashes of the cremation, he's duped by.
Right.
I guess that guy that he hires, I thought it was just some random guy that he was hiring because obviously he couldn't go there himself because he's a wanted man.
To the morgue, yeah.
But that guy is supposedly a private investigator that he hired.
Okay.
I don't know that comes across very clear.
It does not.
Either way it works. If it's some random guy, it doesn't have to be a private investigator. I just thought it was some random guy he gave some money to go check it out.
Yep.
But the guy says that he can't tell if it's his wife or not because her face is too disfigured. And he lies to him and says, "Oh yeah, it's totally her. I do it right away."
Right.
And so he doesn't even know. Like he's going thinking that his wife is dead and he's just bringing her ashes home. And in all reality, she was never in any harm. She looks like she's just totally fine. And you don't know what happened. You don't know if she was ever cheating on him or hiding out from him for whatever reason, or just went out and started a new life. It looks like she's getting off a train and going back home.
Yeah. I know.
So it's weird.
It is weird.
But I did like it made a lot more sense to me when I figured out that wasn't his wife in the bank. And it was just, it was just these two different people that wanted the same guy dead.
Yeah.
I mean, the husband of the wife.
Yep.
And then his own wife wanted him dead.
Yep.
And, there was like these dueling assassination attempts basically. And that's, I thought that was clever.
Yeah, no, it is twisty, and you cleared a lot of things up for me. I don't know. I don't know what else to say about this movie, but I guess we're ready to get into grades.
I'll just just say it's up there. I mean, I don't think it's as good as something like like Memories of Murder.
Oh no.
Parasite. Things like that. But it's definitely.
I Saw the Devil.
Oh yeah, no. It's not reaching those highs, but it's really solid.
Yeah,
I'll say that it's definitely not like a a lesser Korean film.
Yeah,
So.
have you ever seen The Chaser? That's a good comp too that I think is better
No,
than this.
I've seen that pop up a lot. It was like perpetually streaming for a while, but I just, for whatever reason, I just never got a chance to see it.
Yeah, if it ever comes up again, I would definitely recommend that. Okay, great grades. I'll give this a B+. Overall, would recommend this to those looking for underseen Korean thrillers. So B+. Hermano.
Yeah, I'm going a little higher, A-. I'll just reiterate, I think it gets off to a little bit of a slow start, but hang in there because I think it gets going about 45 minutes in or so, and then it gets really good, and it does not let up. I felt like from that point on, it was like a absolute roller coaster. So yeah, A-.
Okay, that does it for this episode of the First Time Watchers podcast. Donate via patreon.com/firsttimewatchers. Buy stuff at zazzle.com/firsttimewatchers. This is where Wally would say to follow us on Twitter at 1STTimeWatchers.
Or write to us at our email, firsttimewatchers@gmail.com.
Please download our episodes at Apple Podcasts and Stitcher. Feel free to leave a review. We love feedback. If you have any suggestions of movies for us to watch, please send a tweet or an email. Speaking of suggestions, let's recommend a movie. I will go first. I will recommend a movie that I think appeared on the News Sight and Sound list, the expanded 250 list, not the top 100. And it is a movie from 2008, written and directed by Lucrecia Martel from Argentina, called The Headless Woman. After hitting something with her car, a bourgeois Argentine woman's life slowly descends into paranoia and isolation as she fears she may have killed someone. I found this movie very interesting, and it was shot in a very peculiar way. Like almost every shot is a medium or close-up, and it rarely shows the whole person, and instead cuts each character from above the eyes to below the stomach. And the camera also obfuscates a scene. It doesn't show everyone or what may be happening. So much of this actually puts us in the headspace of the main character, who is confused or paranoid, and we have as much information as her in the moment. And there is this underlying mystery, but I think that's secondary to the mood that the director puts us in as we follow this person's confused state of mind. I think you can actually make a connection to a film like American Psycho, but not within the subject matter, only the idea of following a person's mental state as well as what upper class privilege could afford you. So I found this movie kind of really interesting. I really liked it. So I would recommend The Headless Woman. Hermano.
All right, I'll recommend something that I haven't, that I brought up, I think, during our best of, but I haven't really recommended or reviewed on a regular episode from last year. I caught up with it during the break. Pearl.
Oh, nice.
In 1918, a young woman on the brink of madness pursues stardom in a desperate attempt to escape the drudgery, isolation, and loneliness of life at her parents' farm. So yeah, like I really dug X. I heard a lot of good things about this. I will say that I think I fall on the opposite side of a lot of people, where I heard a lot of people saying they like this one more than X.
Really? Interesting. I think I heard like people saying X is better, even though Pearl is good. Yeah. Oh yeah.
Apparently, I've been hearing the opposite. I've been hearing a lot of people saying that they dug Pearl a little bit more. Not a lot more. Usually it was just a little bit more. But I think I dug X a little bit more, though I will say that Mia Goth's performance in Pearl is far stronger.
Sure. Yeah.
than her performance in X, because she has obviously a lot more heavy lifting to do. She's pretty much in every scene. So yeah, I dug the hell out of it. I just think that it's mostly for her performance and less so for the actual story of it.
Yeah.
So yeah, but still, I would highly recommend. Looking forward to Maxine. So yeah, Pearl.
Okay, stay tuned for our next episode. Second Time Watchers is back. This time, it's my pick. I'll be discussing the 1987 film Batteries Not Included.
That's the First Time Watchers podcast, because we like to watch.
I couldn't get away. A cloud appears above your Aurora Borealis comes in the air. Aurora comes in the air. And I ran so far away. I just ran. I ran all night and day. I couldn't get away.
Yeah, I don't like those adventures. Rather
22.
not.
22 more to go.
22 what?
Episodes. Yeah, that's it. I'm done.
Yay. I don't hear the happiness in your voice, Tim. I feel like there's a little bit of resentment, a little bit of sadness in your voice.
Look, I'm sure once we get down to it, it'll get a little more bittersweet. Don't you think? Don't you think there'll be a little bit more like, oh, it is coming to an end?
Yeah, I've already talked to Mia about it. She's like, "Oh, do you feel bummed?" I was like, "Right now, it doesn't feel like it's gonna happen." I don't know why.
Yeah.
I just feel like, like you just said, like the last couple episodes, I might start feeling like, oh man, we only got like 3 more or whatever, and oh boy, that's weird. Like, what's it gonna be like not having to do this anymore or whatever? But we'll see. I don't know. I honestly don't know. I have like mixed feelings about it. It's like I know that it means that I won't, even just for like 1 hour a week, get to talk to you guys.
Yeah.
That's probably the worst part of it.
Uh-huh.
But the podcasting itself is, I'm like whatever. Like we've been doing it for so long. I feel like I don't know. I feel like, I don't know if you feel like I do, but rarely do we review a movie where I'm like, wow, that was such a good movie to review or talk about. I love the discussion. I think most of the time it's just, I don't feel like every movie hits those heights. You know what I mean?
When do you think was the last movie to hit that for you?
I don't know, but there are so many movies that I've seen that I'm like, oh man, that would have been a really good one to like do on the podcast.
Interesting.
But for whatever reason, we just never do.
Interesting.
I think most of the time it's because like you'll see something like when it's in theaters and I won't see it till it's streaming. So by the time I see it, I'm like, oh man, that would have been a good one to review, but I probably should have watched it back when Tim did, and we maybe could have. But again, it's so rare. Like I'm trying to think of the last one that I was like, oh man, I wish we could have done that. I mean, Triple R's one I wish we could have done on the podcast.
Right.
That would have been fun.
Yeah.
If I hadn't just been like, oh god, that runtime. But yeah, I don't know. I'm sure there's other things. Every now and then, but again, it's pretty rare. It's like, I'd say like 1 out of like, shit, like 30, 40 episodes. I'm like, wow, I'm so glad we reviewed that movie and we talked about it,
Well, the ratio then is soon to hit the mark at some point between now and 500.